thank you all for taking time on your busy Tuesday to join me for our mid-year HR compliance check-in. We put together a slide deck for you to cover a lot of different topics, but those of you that know me well enough and have worked with me in the past know that I have a story for everything. So what I'm going to do, instead of just boring you with slides, we're going to cover all of this, but I'm also going to give you the issues that people are facing right now. Right? I think, from the seat that I sit in, I'm on the phone with our clients pretty much all day, every day, nationwide, and I get roped into questions and concerns and complaints. So I'm going to also chime in and kind of give you, hey, this is what's going on in your neighborhood. This is what you need to be aware of right now. This is what's happening in 2025, so that if you take that information mixed in with what you see in front of you, hopefully we can figure out how to remove any obstacles or speed bumps that might just be there on the horizon for you, so that you can make an adjustment before you find yourself in a little bit of a mess. As always, PayEntry is not a law firm. The presentation today is intended for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon in reaching a conclusion in a particular area of law. The applicability of all of the principles that we will discuss today absolutely will differ depending on what state you're in, how many employees you might have, what type of business that you're in. So please just keep that in mind. And if you have a specific question, either use the GoToMeeting chat box here, or you know how to get a hold of us via our HR services at PayEntry email address. That comes directly to me and my team. We'll be glad to call you and walk through any specifics that you might have if you don't feel comfortable sharing those with the group today. The overview of our agenda, we're going to talk about documentation, obviously probably the most important piece, wage and hour practices. There are a lot of changes, right? July 1st is a marker in a lot of different states with some new legislation. And then again, there'll be things on the horizon in the next 3 months that we'll have to pay attention to for January. How to evaluate employee benefits and prepare yourself for open enrollment, revisiting policies, handbooks, training, checking in on culture and engagement, and then also at the end, as Dina mentioned, some Q&A. Employee documentation, this is important, right? Your onboarding process, one of the things that we get involved in here at PayEntry on the HR side is helping our clients with onboarding, right? New hire packets, making sure that you have correct documents that are state specific, right? If you have employees in different states, you should not be using the same documentation for all of the employees. That's a mistake that could get you in hot water. Another issue is that some of the federal documents change, right? The I-9 form is updated probably every year, sometimes more than once per year. So the mistake that you would make is to pre-print out a stack of all these things and have them sitting around, and then you have a new hire come in and you're using last year's I-9 form or last year's other document that you might have. So that's a part of our service as well. If you utilize the Mineral HR Answer dashboard, there are documents in there. We also customize those for our clients depending on the type of business and where you're located. There might be some additional documents that you want included in those packets, but it's important that you keep those freshened up and that you're not recycling stale documents. Obviously, the I-9 documentation, especially nowadays in today's political climate, becoming a very, very important topic for all of our clients, whether or not you use E-Verify. E-Verify is not the law, across the country. Some states do have E-Verify mandates, depending on the size of the business and depending on the industry that you're in. Most commonly is for federal contractors and businesses that have federal contracts. If you're not necessarily sure as to where you stand, you can reach out, and we've got a little tool that we can send you so that you can go through that analysis and figure out whether or not you need to comply. But it does not remove the burden from you, the employer, of properly going through the I-9 and personally verifying the documentation. Okay, I've been through DHS audits a couple of times over the past 15 years. And as long as you are making a good faith effort to comply, meaning you have the correct document, okay, and that you are personally verifying the documents from the employee, you don't have any issues. You don't have anything to worry about, okay? Those of you that have gone through an audit with me, you've heard me say this time and time again, right? If an employee chooses to provide you false documentation, that's on the employee, okay? There's no exposure on the employer as long as you show that you have controls in place, that you have the documents, that everything's correct, and that you have a solid process that we've helped you implement, right? Employee handbooks are another thing we'll talk about toward the end. But again, another common issue, common error that I see are people, my employee handbook, yeah, I haven't updated it in 5 years. It's crazy, right? With all the things that are going on with the uptick in litigation across the country, you have to have an updated employee handbook. Multi-state, right? Another huge error that I see from some of our clients is that you've now grown. Okay. Well, hey, Brett, we have remote employees. I have a sales rep in Washington, and I've got another, part-time bookkeeper in Texas. Well, those are employees of other states, right? So yes, you've reached out to us, and we've, made the adjustments on the payroll side to help you pay taxes in those states. But you need to have handbook policies, right, and other HR documentation for those specific issues. Updated emergency contact information is very important when we're talking about attendance issues and leave of absence. I think one of the other most common calls that I get, I think I had 3 of them yesterday, is, hey, we have an employee who went out on a leave of absence. The doctor's note expired on Friday, June 13th. We're expecting them back, and they're not here. What do? I'm firing them today. Can I just fire them? No. We're not firing anybody today. Let's call. Well, I tried calling and they don't answer. All right, now we need to go to the emergency contact information. Okay, this is federal law. Some states have different provisions, but we need to make a good faith effort to reach out, right? So that if we do need to terminate based off of the job abandonment policy, okay, that we can easily do so because we have it documented that we contacted the employee. We reached out to the emergency contact. We made multiple attempts to get a status update from the employee that were all unanswered. Then we've now taken the adverse action, right? We're not just pulling the plug at 8:01 on Monday because they didn't come back to work, unless we want to get sued, of course. Training records, certifications, okay? The trainings that you have your employees take, whether it's safety, whether it's harassment, whether it's something that's company specific, you need to have very clear records of attendance, dates and timestamps, or else those are going to be void if you ever needed to present them as evidence, okay? In a sample harassment, lawsuit situation. Oh, well, we have everybody go through harassment training. Okay, well, when? When was it? Okay. What day was it? What time? Can you prove that the employee actually sat through the 1-hour training, or of the supervisor in California, the 2-hour training, or the safety training, right? If it's just something to where you had somebody talking at a group of people, in a warehouse setting or in your parking lot, and you can't really confirm everybody was there, and you're not really sure how long it was, it's going to be void, right? And you're not gonna be able to get out of that as quickly as you would if you had really good documentation on your training. Okay. Yeah, digital and physical records. Another thing that I get asked a lot is, hey, Brett, you know what? We're looking at maybe downsizing our office space. Our employees are working remotely now. Can we keep electronic records? The answer is yeah. There's no law that says you have to have hard copy records. Okay, you can keep everything digitally as long as you are following, all of the up-to-date, data protection laws. You can make sure that, all of those files are encrypted and safe. But you also just need to be aware of any auditing agency that's going to request those, so that it should be stored in a manner to where you can easily retrieve them. Okay, so if you got a letter from a state agency, if you got a letter from the IRS or whichever federal agency, that had a question on an employee or a set of employees, you need to be able to easily retrieve those and produce them, or else we have a whole host, other host of issues to deal with. Okay. But yeah, the days of keeping files upon files upon files in an office and having them all stack up, not necessarily a requirement any longer. Also, you should be aware of your state specific retention guidelines, right? California is about 5 years is what I recommend to our clients out here. Some other states have shorter retention periods. But yeah, if an employee has been gone for more than 5 years, chances are you're never going to need any of those documents because all of the statute of limitations on employment related claims is expired. So just shred them. You don't need to have, stale bank account information and social security information and driver's licenses and et cetera on people that have been gone for a long time, right? Do everybody a favor, get a document shredding company to come out, dispose of all of those things, safely, and that way you can, make sure that you're not leaving yourselves open for, data privacy issues or, theft. Wage and hour practices, obviously that's something, out here in the great state of California that is keeping us all up at night. That's a huge issue. Missteps in payroll and wage compliance can be costly. Employment classifications. This is coming, this has been an issue here for a long time, but slowly but surely now we're getting more traction across the country with clients that are calling and say, hey, look, exempt, non-exempt, or independent contractors versus W-2 employees. That's something that you want to make sure that you are digging into, right? If you have a large amount of 1099s, and the rules are changing slightly, and you need help going through that analysis, we can actually absolutely do that. I'd be glad to jump on the phone with you. Exempt versus non-exempt is a big one, right? You're all aware that in order to be salary exempt, there's a minimum wage requirement, right? They have to be paid a certain amount. I still see this a lot. Oh, I've got Dina on salary. Oh, yeah, what's the salary? 45,000. Whoa, wait a minute, right? Depending on what state that we're in, that could get us in hot water, right? It's easily discoverable because it's on a W-2, right? So we don't want to make errors when it comes to payroll practices because we're going to be sunk every time. It's so easy for the plaintiff's attorneys to uncover these issues because they have the timesheet. It's right there. They have the pay stub. It's right there. They've got the W-2, right? So there's no argument. There's no he said, she said. It's all documented in records. We have to produce it, when the subpoena comes over, and we're just toast at that point. So it's very important that you understand the wage and hour rules for your specific state. Okay. For your locality, there are a lot of now municipalities, counties, townships, cities that are developing their own policies, that are a little bit more, progressive than some of the state legislation. And we need to determine whether or not you need to pay attention to those as well. Overtime, okay? Making sure that you're calculating overtime correctly. I had a call last week, okay? Overtime is based off of the work week, not pay period, not calendar week, okay, but work week. You have the right as the employer to designate your work week, right? The most common one that I see is Sunday through Saturday, even if businesses are not open on the weekends, right? But you can adjust that if you need to, right? Out here, during COVID in California, we had a lot of restaurants that would kind of shut down on like Mondays. Like, hey, we're going to close on Monday. We're going to maybe close on Tuesday because we don't have the foot traffic coming in. Well, then you might want to adjust your work week, right? So you can use those days to alleviate some of the overtime concern, right? I spoke with somebody last week that has been misunderstanding the law for some time. They were paying off of pay period, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, you know what? Our pay period's a 2-week semi-monthly, pay period. Okay. Well, they didn't work more than 80 hours, right? They had them working like 55 hours in 1 week and then only 15 in the second week. And I'm like, that's not how it works, guys, right? You're going to have to go back now. I mean, I would, you have to go back and conduct an analysis and figure out how long has that been going on, right? What type of, exposure do you have? And then we can talk offline, right, about, a strategy to address that, to make that employee whole, or to figure out how to, put that to bed, because the last thing you want is for that employee to tell another employee and another employee and another employee. Now we've got class action, and we're talking at minimum six figures. Okay. So it's important. We can help you with that using, pay entry, the timekeeping software. We have multiple options. We have a lot of different platforms that we can show you if you don't already have ours. Okay. And all of them are 100% compliant. Okay. The days of us trying to use, some, very inexpensive or free softwares, those days are gone. We can't do that. Okay. I hear people, oh, well, I use T-Sheets. QuickBooks is great. And look, maybe if you have like one or two people, that's okay. But if you're growing, it's not good enough anymore, right? There are too many issues, too many mistakes. So please, right? If you haven't seen one of our time and attendance systems, let me know, and I'll be glad to walk you through one and just give you something to look at. They're not very expensive. They're not expensive at all to really take this entire albatross off of your plate, right? And what it does is then it turns this process in just to a traffic cop type of thing. Okay, the software is going to put the controls in place, and all you need to do is take a peek every afternoon before you go home and say, all right, yep, good, all green, no issues today, good, 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 good. Or it will tell you, hey, this is wrong, right? Whether it's California, hey, this looks like there's a meal penalty issue here. Hey, we're in Michigan and it looks like there's an overtime type of an issue here. And you can say, stop, all right, what happened? Okay. Hey, Lorena, were you it looks like you triggered overtime. Were you authorized by your manager to work overtime? No, I wasn't. Okay. Right. And then we can have those conversations to figure out next steps. Okay. Just another little, pointer, I guess, here. Um, if an employee works overtime, okay, and even though it was not authorized, it must be paid. Okay, another issue that I see a lot, a lot of lawsuits. Hey, Brett, we're getting sued. I got a letter from the state of Minnesota. I need your help, right? Overtime violations. Well, what happened? Yeah, you know what, Johnny, I didn't authorize overtime. It says in our handbook, no unauthorized overtime. And this guy worked, on the weekend a bunch, and I didn't tell him to, so I didn't pay. Can't do that. Okay. You must pay for all hours worked, but then you can absolutely discipline and possibly even terminate depending on how egregious the violation is. Okay. And we can work together, right? As part of our HR, consulting packages. I can help you. I can be a part of those conversations. I can deliver that message for you to the employee, okay, depending on the level of service. But please, please, please make sure, okay, that you're using a time and attendance software and that it's set up correctly depending on what state that you're in. And if somebody's working or somebody's doing something that's unauthorized, we must pay, and then we have to document and discipline after the fact. Okay. Status change documents, please, they're also can be found in your Mineral HR Answers dashboard, right? If you are making adjustments, if you're giving somebody a raise, if you're changing them from, exempt or non-exempt to exempt, or whatever the adjustment might be, please make sure that you're using those status change documents to easily, track everything. It will also be duplicated in pay entry in the software. But it's important that we have those, so we have records of any changes that are being made, and then there's a narrative as to why. Okay, positive performance review, negative performance review, or promotion to manager, etc. Okay. Stay current on all of your local, states, federal regs. Another thing that I see a lot, right, is that payroll 101, guys, is that there's no payroll company, okay, on the planet, certainly not pay entry. Payroll companies are not ever going to go into your account and automatically make adjustments on your behalf. It's not what we do. It's not part of our process at all. Okay. Your bank account is associated with the payroll setup. So obviously any changes that are made can affect the bank account, which is why we don't touch it. Our job is to educate you and let you know, hey, Hey, you know what? You're in the city of Los Angeles. You have 3 weeks now to make an adjustment because minimum wage is going up. And we're just going to keep blasting that to you. You're going to see it 6 or 7 times, right? Once a week leading up. But we are not going to go into your account, okay, and start touching all of your employees and changing their rates because I don't know where they're located. I don't know where they work. I know you as the employer might be located in the city of Los Angeles, but Brett is not in the city of Los Angeles. He's in Claremont, right? So he doesn't qualify for that higher rate. Okay, Dana might be in a zone that does qualify. So just keep that in mind. A lot of times we get those calls. Hey, what the heck, man? It's January 21st already, and you never went in and changed my rate. Well, it's not our job to change your rates, right? The 17 emails that you got from Thanksgiving, through 1/1, that was your reminder to be able to go in there. Okay. So same thing with the sick, right? A lot of now states are implementing sick. We went through Michigan earlier this year. We have Missouri now that's on board, right? Maryland had some changes, I think, last year. California has been doing this for 10 years. All right. So if you have questions about how to implement a sick leave policy that fits your state, that's something that we're very, very good at on the HR team. We can easily help you decipher the rules and strategically implement a policy that's going to work for you, the employer. Okay. I understand that all of these are employee friendly, but there are still strategies that can be implemented, right, to protect you, the employer. Well, what do you mean, Brett? Well, each state is written pretty much identical. Okay. They're all dovetailed off the California legislation. There's minor adjustments based off of the amount of annual usage, but they're all the same. You can either set it up as an accrual, okay, 1 hour of sick for every 30 hours you work, or you can give it to them up front. I can give you your 40 hours or 72 hours or whatever they're asking, whatever they're mandating up front, and then you just use it as you see fit, right? But you need to make that decision based off of the type of business that you run. Okay, and I know I'm giving away some of my secrets here, but I'm glad to be able to point you in the right direction. Usually the analysis looks like if you have a younger workforce, right? If you're running a restaurant or a retail store or something where you're hiring younger kids that don't necessarily make the best choices all day long, then you're going to probably want to have an accrual. Okay, if you give a 19-year-old kid 40 hours of sick leave, they're going to be absent from work every Monday for the rest of the year. Okay, so don't do that. Oh, it's Super Bowl Sunday. Where are my employees? Yeah, they're gone. They're all in Vegas, right? Don't do that. On the flip side, if you have, if it's a professional, if it's pay entry, right? If it's a professional, you're an insurance company, you're a law firm, you're a doctor's office, and you have white collar professionals, they're not going to be abusing your sick pay and trying to take every Friday and Monday off. You might be able to just give it to them in a lump sum policy up front, right? To be able to save some of the heartburn of managing an accrual, right? Either way, the payroll software can easily accomplish both of these. The HR team, we can easily help you draft policies. But again, another issue that I see are incongruent policies. Okay. I have clients that are running restaurants that are pulling their hair out because they've got employees that are missing work and they're telling me, dude, what am I doing? What's going on here? And I look at the sick leave and I'm like, yeah, you have a sick leave policy that doesn't necessarily match the type of business that you run. So we're going to have to fix it. Okay. Vacation's another one. Some of these policies will allow you to kind of combine these, right? There are pros and cons for either way. I typically don't like bundling the sick and the vacation because I feel as the employer that you lose control. Okay, well, what do you mean, Brett, by control? Well, vacation is there's no law in any state across this country that requires you to offer vacation. It's a benefit. You don't have to offer it, but you offer it, right, out of the kindness of your heart and as a recruiting tool to be able to recruit, retain, the top people. Okay. So with that being said, you should develop a policy around that vacation, right, that is advantageous to you as the employer. Meaning, well, there's a request process. It must be requested at least X amount of hours or days in advance. You're not just calling me tomorrow. Hey man, hey, I'm taking the day off. I'm taking next week off. well, like we have a busy week. We've got a bunch of clients coming in. We have a bunch of deliveries that we're waiting on. Like, I need you here, right? We can't do that. Should be 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Let me know so that I can then make adequate adjustments to the schedule on the operations side so that we don't have a huge hole, in our day to day. You can absolutely do that. Okay. You can reject vacation requests. I want Friday off. I'm sorry, man. We have an all hands on deck meeting on Friday. Can't give you off. Got to come in. You have Monday off, but not Friday. Okay. Whereas all of these sick policies are don't ask, don't tell. If an employee calls you today and says, "Hey, I can't come in, I'm sick," we cannot ask them for doctor's notes. That's a violation of each and every state policy that I've seen to date. Okay. Can't ask them for doctor's notes. We can't give them a hard time as to why they're not here, right? Retaliation, we're going to get sued, right? So it makes it difficult on the supervisors when an employee calls in. If you have everything bundled, they don't know, is this vacation? Is it sick? Like, how am I going to say okay? Can I not say okay? And I see a lot of people screwing this up, right? Putting employees through the ringer, like, oh, you can't take the day off. You didn't put in 2 weeks in advance. And then we get, labor commissioner claims or lawsuits, for privacy violations. So that's why I prefer to keep them separate. But again, there are cases to be made on both sides, depending on the state, depending on how many employees you have. But we can help you with that. We can help you go through that analysis, and we can help you decide on which policy will fit your company the best. But the reason why I bring that up, huge issue, probably in the top 5 of ones that I get roped into, are incongruent sick and vacation policies. Okay, remote work policies, tax implications. Again, right? The employees need to be taxed based off of where they work. Okay, not based off of where your office is or where you work because you're the owner or the payroll manager. A lot of issues. Probably at least 10 or 15 that I've been roped into this year. We're like, oh, I didn't realize. Like, we're all in California. Well, yeah, but that guy's in Nevada. So you didn't have a Nevada tax ID. You need to have Nevada policies. You need to make sure that he's getting taxed in Nevada. You can't just throw him into California. Oh, right. Yeah, and that's a mess because now we have to call the state of Nevada. We can help you smooth that over, but there's going to be fees and penalties and interest that the state of Nevada is going to assess. So just be aware of what's going on under your roof, especially if you have remote employees. They just need to let you know what's going on. They can't just be moving without telling you, so that we can tackle this and we can be proactive. Okay. I would also recommend that you have work from home agreements. Another issue that I see a lot. Okay. Is, yeah, I just hired this guy. He's remote and like he never answers the phone. His camera's always off. He's not really doing anything. Well, what are the metrics? Did you have a remote work agreement? Does it say what the expectations are? Well, no, not really. Well, okay, well that's could be problematic, right? If we need to now terminate or go through the progressive discipline plan, or process that we've worked together to create, if we don't have that document, we have issues. So again, proactive, right? Everything that we do here on the HR side of pay entry is about proactive compliance. Okay. My goal is that if we work together, look, people are going to do things that are dumb. Okay. People are going to make mistakes. Technology is going to make mistakes. We're going to have issues. Okay. But we're going to have minor issues. We're going to have paper cut issues that we can solve very, very quickly. Okay. Without having a mess. If we work together and if we lay out this proactive, approach and foundation in front of your business, we can cut off all of these huge problems, all these huge wage issues and discrimination issues. Just by training, education, and proactive compliance, we can eliminate a lot of this heartburn together. Okay. We talked about multi-state handbook. Again, we have a great software that we can give you. Okay. It has all of the all 50 states. You can set it up multi-state. Okay. It's awesome, right? It is really, really cool. It populates everything for you. Right? It highlights all of the differences so that we can work together and figure out if we want to adopt all the policies, or we maybe want to just try to choose the more generous of the two, so that we can have just one leave policy or sick policy for the company. There's also a translation component, right? Which is another thing too. Just kind of, should have added another bullet here, right? Another issue that I see a lot are wrongful termination issues because we did not provide translated documents to our employees. Okay. Again, this doesn't apply to everybody, depending on where you are geographically, depending on what industry you're in. Okay. If you have employees that prefer to read in another language other than English, okay, you have to provide translated documents, right? It happens all the time. Brett, I've been talking to Tony for a year. He speaks English. Yeah, speaking English is not the legal threshold. Okay, you don't know. You don't know. Maybe, yeah, he can speak English, but maybe he can't read it very well. Okay, so we go through this trouble of putting all these HR documents together. Okay, and he kind of gets it, but he really doesn't get it. He's not really sure what's going on. Okay, because English could be his second language. You're going to get a knucklehead plaintiff's attorney, right? I know because I went to school with a whole host of them, okay, that are going to find those issues and going to throw a little wrongful termination case your way because, you know what, Your Honor, my client doesn't read English, didn't know that he was violating the company policies, okay, was terminated, right? Didn't really, nobody went through and explained it to him, and now they took his livelihood away, and we think this is worth 10, 15, $20,000. Okay. So again, proactive compliance. If you think that you might need some support, we can help you, right? The state and federal labor law posters that you have to have in your common areas, we have those in different languages too that we can send to you. Okay. So the cost of compliance is very, very minimal, right? Compared to what it's going to cost if we don't do it right the first time. Okay. Employee benefits. I say this because this is another thing that I usually find when people are talking to me and say, Brett, you know what? We were going through this HR audit together. We are, trying to figure out. I like what you're talking about the time and attendance software, but if that's going to be, $75 a month, and you have this really nice now performance review software, and that's going to be another $100 a month. I don't know if I can afford $175 a month. How can I maybe make an adjustment? Okay, and I will tell you, sometimes the answer is reviewing the benefits. Okay, not eliminating the benefits, but reviewing the benefits. We have a tremendous team here at PayEntry that can help you. And what do I mean? Well, a lot of times I see policies that are very, kind of top heavy. Okay, we'll use the restaurant example, right? And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, we have this great plan. We have this great, benefit rich, PPO plan that we've rolled out to the employees, and it's awesome, and everybody loves it. And I look, and I'm like, okay, well, how many people are even on it? I'm like, oh yeah, four out of 30. Well, why is that? Well, and I asked the employees, hey, what's wrong? Well, Brett, I'm 22 years old. I don't have a family. Maybe I live with my parents, and that plan is, I mean, yeah, that's great. Maybe in 10 years when I'm married and have kids and I have a home and I need, but right now I'd rather just have the money in my check, right? So it's something to where maybe you got a benefit plan years ago when you were very small, okay, but now you've grown, and it's, it takes care of the ownership, it takes care of the managers, but there's not really an option for, the other employees, or it's you're giving them all this, the Rolls Royce benefits, but they don't necessarily need all of that. They'd be happy with something that's a fraction of the cost. Okay. um, you know, Sometimes they don't even want the insurance. They value vacation, right? So it's just having the conversations with the employees. We can talk to them. We can go through that. We call it like a stay interview. Tell me about, you're working here at Brett's restaurant. What's the best? What do you love about it? What would you maybe change if you could? Tell me about your benefits. Or do you appreciate? Do you know that they pay? They have a 401k and they pay a match. Are you participating? And we look at all this participation, and then the utilization. And sometimes there are ways that we can still keep the benefits, but make a few adjustments to then free up that money that you can spend elsewhere on time and attendance, on HR support, okay, on performance review software, etc. Okay, so not advocating for just scrapping benefits, absolutely not. Especially nowadays in today's environment, you need to have a very generous benefit offering to be able to compete with the top tier candidates, and then not only just get them, but then to keep them here under your roof for a long time. But we have those tools, and we have a great team. We have a benefits team here at PayEntry. We have a retirement plan team here at PayEntry. We'd be glad to just give you, an evaluation. There's no strings attached. You don't have to use our services, right? But our team, Stephanie on the insurance side, Mike on the retirement side, they'd be glad to meet with you and just say, hey, look, you know what? Yeah, good news is you're doing the right thing and you've got a great offering. Or hey, you know what? Did you know that you can have this, this, and this, and it's going to probably save you a few $100s a month that you can then reallocate into some HR or some training, et cetera. Okay. Now's the time to take a look at that, though. Most open enrollments are towards the end of the year. Today's, perfect to be able to take a peek. That way, heading into the, third quarter, fourth quarter, that you're on the right trajectory for next year. You can just renew with your current carrier, the current plan, or maybe we've identified a few issues and you want to make a few adjustments going into next year. Okay. Communication strategies, another thing, guys. There are a lot of automated processes now, right? Another thing that when I'm going through my HR audit, I ask this, so talk to me about your open enrollment. Oh yeah, it's great. They send me a big stack of papers and I go through everything manually. Well, it's 2025, the days of us sitting in the conference room just going through all these documents, people don't do that anymore. Okay, that's a telltale sign for me that maybe you need to have a conversation with Stephanie and team, because perhaps you're not getting all the best information and the best tools from your current provider or your current broker. Okay, there are a lot of technologies out there. There are a lot of pieces of software free in some instances. Okay, I have a lot of our clients tell me I got this for free. Oh, I don't pay for that. The broker pays for this. The broker pays for this, right? And there's a way that we can kind of integrate it through PayEntry, that where it's automated, right? An employee can then get an email, hey, welcome to Brett's Restaurant. It's time for you to select your benefits. And then everything's automated from there. It comes through payroll. The deductions are set up. We can help get everything to the carrier, just to take that off of your plate. Okay. So takeaway here is that, yeah, if you're still, kind of, back in the Stone Age and you're doing things by hand, there's probably a high likelihood that there are some ways that we can introduce some automated technology for you, either free or very, very, low cost, to be able to help save some time and be more efficient. And again, that's what employees are looking for. Okay, especially the younger generation of employees that are coming out of school, that have been in the workforce for a few years, right? They want progressive companies, right? They want companies that are like, wow, okay, we have electronic onboarding. We have employee self-service for payroll. I can go on and get my pay stub and my W-2 at any time. Okay, I can change my information and my withholding or my direct deposit. Okay, I can change my insurance information, right? They don't want to come into a conference room and sit through stacks of documents. They're like, what kind of company am I working for, right? Technology is huge, right? So if you think that you might need us to take a peek, please let me know. Okay, Employee Navigator, that's one of the softwares that we utilize. If you have not heard of Employee Navigator before, let me know. Okay, and again, I'll be glad to. I know sometimes we have webinars that cover that. We can invite you to that. Stephanie and team can reach out and just kind of show you, what it looks like and how we might be able to help. But again, time is money. Your time is very valuable. Please don't spend, time doing enrollments by hand. It's a complete waste. Okay. Handbooks and training. We're almost here at the Q&A spot. Maybe 5 more minutes here. But a lot of things that I see, some of the issues that we talked about in January when we did our 2025 updates, that you might want to take a peek. Again, the remote and the hybrid work expectations. Hybrid meaning you have an office, okay, but you're allowing people to work from home a few days a week. You don't have to relinquish control, okay? Put metrics in place. Tony, you want to work from home 2 days a week? Awesome. Here's what I expect. And if you don't hit these goals, then guess what? We are revoking your hybrid option, and you'll report back to the office 5 days a week. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but you need to have that, you know, documentation. You need to have that month-to-month agreement so that the employee knows that it can be revoked. Because if we just let them go and we're not following up, then we're never getting them back in. Okay, because what's going to happen is they're going to go online. You know, I see these too, these online, you know, chiropractors or online doctor's office facilities that will generate, you know, notes. And hey, you know, my client here, Tony, you know, he's got these, you know, issues and he needs to work from home a few days a week, right? And now we're stuck. Now we have to go through an accommodation process, you know, and it's frustrating. We're pretty sure that this document is fake, that the note is fake, you know, but are we just are we gonna roll the dice, right? Is it a game of chicken? Are we just gonna, you know, terminate or say, hey, this document's fake? What if it's not, right? Now we have a huge mess. So now we have to go through this sham, you know, ADA interactive process with the employees when we could have easily just fixed it at the beginning by implementing this, you know, either remote or hybrid agreement that, you know, is revocable if you're not hitting your goals. And, you know, that way we're keeping the upper hand throughout the entire process. Okay. Harassment, discrimination training. Look, it's 2025. There are a lot of different issues across the country. Even if you are in a state that does not require harassment training or discrimination training, I recommend that you take it. Okay. A lot of states offer it for free. There are a lot of training mechanisms to where we can get it either for free or at a very inexpensive rate. But it's just one of those things. If you're interacting with the public, okay, if you have clients or you have partners that you're visiting with, you just don't need these issues. They're very, very preventable. Okay. You know, we have a client in Wisconsin, right? They don't have a harassment um, policy, you know, in or a training policy, right? It's not a requirement in Wisconsin. Okay. But hey, they have sales reps, and these sales reps, you know, take clients to you know, sporting events, and they go out to golf and they do all this business development, right? And then we have employees, sales reps that are just talking about God knows what, right? Telling, you know, jokes that they think are funny. You know, hey, I saw this on Saturday Night Live, and hey, here's this political joke, and here's this is funny. And we have issues. We get complaints. Hey, you know, your employee said this, your employee said that, and it's costing our client, you know, they're losing these sales relationships because they never went through and trained their people, right? And I'm like, what's going on? The response I get, well, it's not a requirement. Okay, cool. Well, we could have given it to you. We could have found a free resource. You just lost a $40,000 account because you got some idiot sales rep that's telling all these jokes at a golf tournament. Okay, when we could have given you the training and you could have put them through it for an hour, right? And hopefully educated them and so that they know what's appropriate and what's not. Okay, to talk about in the workplace, right? So this is one of those things, cost benefit. Okay? Even though you don't have to do it, you should probably think about doing it, right? Because it applies to all situations, you know, regardless of what industry and what state that you're in. Okay, social media. Okay, I see this a lot as well. You know, employees need to understand that there are professional, you know, social media type dashboards, right? You've got your LinkedIn, and you've got, you know, sometimes people are on Indeed or Glassdoor, etc. Great. You know, it's professional content only. Okay. You know, you have a Facebook, etc. You don't need to put all of your business information. Okay. It's just not smart. Okay. Keep it separate. Keep it to be your personal stuff. Anything that's personal. Don't have to put on your personal Facebook that you work at Pay Entry and you do this, because then you're dragging my company into your mess, right? So if you're on there talking about God knows what on the weekend, right? Or I see on there and you got beers all over the place and you're tarnishing my reputation. Now it is my business because you made it my business. Okay, so just don't do it. Help them understand. Help the employees understand what's going to be acceptable and what's not going to be acceptable. Right? Don't mix business with personal. Keep your personal stuff over here. Okay. Keep your business stuff over here. Don't link them all. Don't tag everything, because if you make it my business, now I have to get involved and it's not going to be good. Okay. You know, lastly here, and culture and engagement, right? We spend a lot of time recruiting. Okay. A lot of you on this call that use us for our HR support services, we're helping you figure out how to recruit and onboard and retain top people. You're spending a lot of money to find those people, right? The worst thing that you can do is you spend a bunch of money on the front end to get them here, and then you lose them quickly on the back end because you have, poor managers, or there's no training, or there's no culture and engagement. Okay, so are you talking to them? Are you checking in with them every 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, getting them set up for success? Okay, are your managers giving feedback? Hey, you know what? It's okay, right? Are your managers trained on how to give feedback? Okay, how to deliver difficult news, right? Crucial accountability conversations, so that they're not just sweeping things under the rug, or they're not just like, well, it's kind of awkward. I don't want to make them upset. Well, you have to give feedback, and you have to hold people accountable. It starts from the top down. Okay. Again, something that we can do as a part of the HR services program here to be able to help you, to ask the employees, to be able to get ahead of these issues so that we don't keep spinning wheels on recruiting and bringing people in and they just keep leaving, or they get poached by competitors, even worse. Okay. Small changes now can have a huge impact by the end of the year. Now's the time to go through this mid-year check-in with your people, right? Ask them, hey, how are things going? Are you having a good year? Do you know what your goals are, right? Do you know how to do you know how to earn your commissions? Do you know how to get your bonus? If today was the last day of the year, do you think I'd be giving you a bonus? Okay. And if they say yes, and you're like, absolutely not, well, then we have a huge problem, right? Well, either the message is not getting, cascaded correctly from you through the manager to the employee. If they think that they're one of your best reps and you're like thinking about getting rid of them, then there's something's wrong. And we can address those issues. We can uncover those issues today, and make the corrections before it's too late. Okay. Um, Final thoughts here before we open up the Q&A. Again, proactive, stay ahead, right? Don't react. I'm a good firefighter, right? You call me and you have a huge issue and you need me to put the fire out. I'll put the fire out for you. No problem. Okay. Absolutely no issue at all. But it's what the ship has already sailed, right? The damage is already done. There's already smoke in your house, and it's going to be very difficult to get rid of it. Okay. So it's a lot better that if we say, hey, you know what, man, the cost of compliance is not a lot. Okay, it is not a lot at all. We have a lot of different options, depending on what size you are, what size company, what state you're in. You have multi-state. We can help you. We have something for everyone. So please reach out and let me know. I'd be glad to chat with you. Right, we can go through that audit to just flesh out all the issues and see. Okay, hey, do we have a lot of problems? Are there some things that we need to check on? Or hey, at least we're good. That's like going to your doctor, right? You should go to the doctor once a year just for that checkup, just to make sure, right? Same thing. Come to the HR doctor. Let's go through that audit, and we'll tell you, hey, you know what? Great news. 100%, you're good. You don't need anything, right? I doubt it. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never found a company that has 100% compliance. There's always something that may have slipped through the cracks, or that we didn't know about, or a big change on the horizon that we need to adjust. And that's what we're working on is issue spotting and figuring out how to get you, in a proactive environment so that you don't have to feel that pain of having smoke, inside your house. Okay. Questions?
This is Jennifer, and she says, or asks rather, how do we find the latest state and federal regulations to make sure we are in compliance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, on your if you have, and we'll look this up for you, Jennifer, and we'll reach out. But if you have the HR Answer dashboard through Mineral, there is an alert function in there. So if you have it set up and you keep the contact information accurate, right? If you go in there and you put in, the email addresses for everybody on your management team or your leadership team that need to receive that information. You're also keeping your employee count in there correct and the addresses where employees are located correct. There's an AI feature on that software that will automatically then push notifications to you of changes that you need to be aware of. Okay. Hey, you're in California, you know this. Hey, you're in Los Angeles County, you need to even know this. Okay. So regardless of where you're located in the country, it will find you and it will push all of that information to you. Okay. If you don't have that service set up, then again, very, very cost effective platform to be able to get information quickly, right? And again, have it pushed to you so that you can get that information well in advance and comply before you're behind the eight ball.
Our next question comes from Brianna. She
Mhm.
asks, do employees only have to do sexual harassment training one time or is it yearly?
That's a great question. So some states have different rules, but the most common rule is every 2 years, right? Like that's the California law. I believe that's the same in New York and Massachusetts as well. Every other year. So what you need to do is you set a reminder, right? And rank and file employees go through it, supervisors go through it, and then I believe there's also a requirement for new hires, right? So in California, and that's where I am, so I know that like the back of my hand is it's within 6 months, right? So you have three things that are moving across the calendar. It's like, okay, all these managers went today. Now we set a 2 year a tickler for the managers, a 2 year tickler for all the employees. And anybody comes in as a new hire, we have 6 months. So our recommendation is you just do it during the first week. You carve out some time during that new hire orientation to have it built in. That way, you're not making any mistakes.
This question comes from Becky. Who typically creates the wrap documents for the benefits? Employer, broker, HR, management company, or other? The
That's a
WRAP.
yeah. That's a great question. Um, Typically, what I've seen, right, is that that's a function that the broker takes the lead on. Okay. Some brokers have the capacity to do it on their own. Some brokers utilize third parties. But yeah, usually if you have a very good broker, they are taking the lead on that to be able to make sure that you are in compliance.
I think we just have time for one more question, and this
Sure.
comes from Tina. When you have a hybrid employee, do you withhold income taxes for the office or the home?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's going to depend on the address of both, right? Some of them you can there's reciprocity, right, between states or between municipalities. So that's a good one. That's very, very specific. What we can do is if I'll in a minute here, I'll put up our HR services. If you want to send us, that question directly with the addresses to look at, we can do the research and get back to you on that and let you know for a fact. Yeah, so just lastly here, before I let you go, in front of you, you see our upcoming webinar series. We've got two in July, one in August, one in September. So please make sure that you keep an eye out for those links. You can also find that on the payentry.com website under events. Our events tab is always up to date with links for you to be able to go in and register. And as Dina mentioned, please, at any time, please reach out. That is the HR services email. It comes to me. It comes to the entire HR services team. So if I'm unavailable, somebody on my team will reach out to you directly. But yes, our commitment is that we will answer every question. So just because we didn't address it today live, you will hear from us either today, tomorrow, either Brett, Jenna, Tony. We will reach out to you and walk you through your question and get you that answer. All right. Again, thank you guys. Much appreciated. Thank you for joining, and I hope that you have a great rest of your Tuesday and a great summer. See you soon.